you'll stop right before that hole. On the pattern you'll see the difference in the holes, and mark that while you're cutting the parts out so you can remember where this one's going to start. If you're buying the kit, those will be just the round holes versus just the little slits. We'll get to this point and then come in between the two layers so we can tie a little knot. You can back stitch or tie a knot or however you want to finish this section up. I like to always use a little dab of glue just to make sure this isn't crucial. And if you want, you can give that a tap with a little mallet or something to kind of flatten that out. And this way we can sew all the parts together, and as soon as we get to the spot where this will be folded down, we won't have to struggle trying to get in between the two layers. Get it done in one fell swoop. This very top corner on this one is the point on this one, but I like to have a knot or back stitching back a little bit, so I'll just count down like 3 or 4 if that's the corner one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Start on that one. Make sure it's lined up. In this boxing, you'll notice kind of curving it a little bit, pressing it in because it's a little bit more of a 3D shape at this point. That can help make it a little easier to sew. You'll see as you come around, it can be helpful to kind of bend that boxing piece so it curves a little bit. And the holes won't feel like they're lining up quite as much because of that three-dimensional shape, so you can look in between the layers as you go here. So when I get to that point, I'll go through that first one and just kind of take a peek so I know it's lined up. With that last stitch, coming between the layers, tie a knot. You can just back stitch or whatever you want to do, but I almost exclusively tie knots, a little dab of glue. That's kind of a domed shape that way. I'll hammer it from this side a little bit. And we'll start sewing here. Once we get down to that circle or that round hole, that's where the two layers are going to be starting to sew together. And you'll notice with this part, that first hole that's round is where that first hole that will be sewn as well. Kind of simplifies things a little bit. And if you're doing the pattern and you're not the kit, so you won't have slits versus holes, you can punch them out that way. It is marked on the pattern. You can punch the holes out however you want and just mark the holes where you start and stop things. But first, we'll be starting right here. This is the last hole. That's just a slit. We're done with like a stitching chisel. And this next one is that first hole where all the layers will be sewn together. So we'll grab the back of that. And actually, since there isn't a hole in the back of this one for that to go through and then come back, we will just pop up that first hole where all layers will be sewn together, which will also come out the top of this one. We'll pull that out and put that through there in a minute. Might as well leave it tucked back behind there to stay out of the way for now. So there's a couple things you can do. You can just continue down, or you can go around the outside, and sometimes that looks nice. Just makes it look a little more reinforced, and actually does reinforce it a little bit more. So with that said, I'll just come around with that back one from the front again. Like that. You can go once, or you can go twice. Not necessary. I kind of like how it looks. Continue on. And again, since this is like a three-dimensional shape, as you go around, you'll need to kind of hold it and line up the holes a little bit. But once we get to about here, I'll show you what I do with that. Stuff that out of the way for now. As you come around this corner, it'll be just a little bit trickier to line those holes up, so it gets that right form. You can wait to do this, but once I get past that point, I like to put this through here. If you need to spray it lightly on the back so it kind of bends easier, you don't want it splitting. Don't force it. Take your time, make sure it goes through nice. Oh, actually, got it twisted here. sure I'm going through the right way. And especially if that's moistened, make sure you flatten it out so it dries nice. And we'll just continue to here, tie a knot in the back. So as you're coming around, like I said, it can get a little difficult lining the holes up. Another thing you can do is put that needle through, get it straightened, and pinch right next to it so it's straight, and hold right there. That way when you come back with the other one, the holes should still be lined up. Whenever I get to an edge of two parts, I check the other side just to make sure I do it exactly the same way. So I forget stuff a lot of times, so I'd much rather it match than not. So the last hole, we can just come through, tie a knot. You can backstitch across here, reinforce that part, really however you want to do it. I'm going to come between the two layers. Just the littlest dab of glue. You don't want it oozing out through stitches or anything. You can mist a little bit of water in there, or get your finger just a little moist and kind of get just a little bit of moisture in there to form this, or you can just leave it dry. You don't necessarily have to form it, especially if we're using smaller ones, but this will fit any standard size pocket watch. I like to just kind of give it a little bit of a form. I like to pull that through and have it go on either side of those stitches, however you want it really. You can form it a little bit.